to my grade.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us for the March 21st, 2024 meeting of the Chicago Teachers Pension Fund Board of Trustees. For the record, I am President Jeffrey Blackwell, and this meeting is being held in person in our office at 425 South Financial Place. The quorum for this meeting is 7 trustees in person. CTPF has provided a remote access option for those who wish to attend virtually, and access instructions have been posted on our website. Please note the following. Trustees who wish to speak, please raise your hand and I will call on you in order. I've asked Vice President Price Ward to help me track the speakers. All participants, please wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking. I will ask for a motion and a second on an agenda item before any discussion on the merits. Please limit discussion from each trustee to 3 minutes unless the body consents to additional time. I'm going to request that a trustee not raise their hand to speak more than 2 times on any matter except to raise a point previously not raised or to answer a question. Please make sure debate is germane to the motion pending. I will entertain a motion with due respect for the length of the debate to close or limit debate to a period certain. I'm going to ask board counsel to assist me by pointing out if any of the adopted standing rules of debate are not being followed. Please be respectful of each other and allow a frank and full discussion, but in an efficient manner. Our agenda calls for us to go into executive session. We will suspend our Zoom meeting and ask non-attendees to leave the room while we are in executive session. Please monitor the meeting online to determine when we are back in open session. For our staff and trustees to focus on the business of the meeting, we will not respond to messages from the public sent using the Zoom chat feature. If you have questions, please forward them to memberservices@ctpf.org. We will now move to public participation.
We have Tina Padilla.
Okay. Good morning, Tina.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, Board of Trustees, Director Carl Lenore, and all who are here and are working hard to protect our retirement savings. In our democracy, the FOIA serves as a vital tool to keep members and citizens alike informed about operations of our government and retirement savings. By going into executive session, you are obstructing members of this vital public information. You make it possible for FOIA requests to be denied by members who want to access the consultant's analysis, the due diligence of our staff, and the frank discussion of our trustees. My one question for our trustees today is, why the recent move to hear manager presentations, analysis of the managers from our consultant, and the frank discussion behind closed doors? Thank you. Have a great meeting, and I'll await your response. Goodbye.
Thank you, Gina. We have anyone else to say? Anyone else for public?
No.
Okay, thank you.
What? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Oh, question, do we respond to any of this? There was some
there was
serious
already a
allegations
response sent.
made. But
We just accept public comment. We don't respond.
at what point do we respond? Because as a trustee and a fiduciary, I get asked a lot of questions. And if we did the right thing, then just state, yeah.
Carlton
Well,
sent a
Carlton
response to
had his
her
hand.
yesterday, Maria.
I'm sorry?
Carlton sent a response to her question.
No, I know
yesterday.
that's what I was trying to tell the attorney. I saw him raise his hand. Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to roll call.
I missed it. Oh, I'm
We
sorry. I
have-
thought he was going to respond now. No,
No, I said he sent a response to her already.
he said a response.
Yes. How many trustees do we have? 8? 9? Okay, we have 9 and 1 participating remotely. Do we need to do we'll do the roll call
Roll
first?
call.
Yes. 8, it is 8.
Trustee
Okay.
Barajas. Present. Trustee Blackwell.
Present.
Trustee Nelson.
Present.
Trustee Ochoa.
Present.
Trustee Price Ward,
Present.
trustee Rodriguez,
Present.
trustee Benson,
Present.
trustee Washington,
Present.
trustee Woods.
Okay, now we need to vote to approve Mary Sharon. Open Meetings Act allows for remote participation by a trustee if a quorum is physically present, which for our board is 7 members, and a member cannot physically attend due to one of the 4 exceptions: personal illness or disability, employment purposes of the business of the public body, family or other emergencies, or unexpected childcare obligations. The following trustee has indicated that they will attend remotely: Mary Sharon Riley. Mary, could you state the general category that you fall under?
I'm in a nursing home getting rehab.
Thank you. I now will entertain a motion and a second from a trustee who is participating.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Washington, seconded by trustee Ward.
Trustee Barajas,
Yes.
trustee Blackwell,
Yes.
trustee Nelson,
Yes.
trustee Ochoa,
Yes.
trustee Price Ward,
Yes.
trustee Rodriguez,
Yes.
trustee Benson,
Yes.
trustee Washington,
Yes.
eight ayes.
Thank you.
Thank you, fellow trustees.
Thank you, Mary.
Well,
That takes us to approval of timed agenda for fixed time for adjournment. Item 4, I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of today's timed agenda and fixed time for adjournment.
So move.
second.
Motion made by trustee Washington, seconded by trustee Ward.
Trustee Barajas,
Yes.
trustee Blackwell,
Yes.
trustee Nelson,
Yes.
trustee Ochoa,
Yes.
trustee Price Ward,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
Yes,
trustee Rodriguez,
Timed agenda, yes.
trustee Benson,
Yes.
trustee Washington.
Yes.
That's 9 ayes.
Thank you. We'll now move on to executive session for the consideration of the following matters under Section 2C of the Open Meetings Act. Executive session minutes, 2C 21, litigation matters under Section 2C 11, and investment matters under Section 2C 7 of the Open Meetings Act. I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So move.
second.
I have a question.
1 second. Who did,
Who was the second?
Mayor Shane.
Mary Sharon? Okay, it was made by trustee Washington and second by trustee Riley. Maria?
My question is, and I've received a lot of feedback from the members. Why are the executive session, we would never start this early. I know we did this with a previous president, executive director, and here was the problem. If members wanted to attend the meeting, or whether it's on Zoom or in person, then they would have to leave. And I was a part of that many years ago. We'd come into the building, executive session was moved up to the front, and they said, we're going to executive session, it'll be a couple hours. And I and other members would have to find a place to stay until executive session was over. Sometimes the notices when the executive session is over, they're not always on the internet, and people get discouraged. Why did we change? And I noticed it was for the January meeting and now for this meeting. Why is executive session up at the top? And where before it was usually after lunch or right before lunch? Or I don't know if that's the decision, the recording secretary or whoever writes the agenda.
The recording secretary had nothing to do with anything.
Okay, so how was that? Because trustees, we did not, I don't recall voting on any of that, but correct me if I'm wrong.
So trustee Rodriguez, the bylaws allow the executive director to make changes to the agenda. And because the executive session now includes our investment managers, the beginning of that was in our January meeting. And so we wanted to make sure that we could have those managers come in and out in the morning. And so we moved the other parts of the executive session with that as well for the morning session.
Because I don't know if part of it was until we have a quorum, because last time there were a lot of managers waiting out there because we need to start on time, which appears today there's better attendance to begin, but we're still about 10 minutes late. It just, well, I'll stop there and we can discuss it later. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Director, for explaining and affirming that the recording secretary had nothing to do with it. Thank you.
Motion was made by trustee Washington, seconded by trustee Riley. I'm gonna call the question.
Trustee Barajas,
Yes.
trustee Blackwell,
Yes.
trustee Nelson,
Yes.
trustee Ochoa,
Yes.
trustee Price Ward,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
yes,
trustee Rodriguez,
No,
trustee Benson,
Yes.
trustee Washington,
Yes.
7 ayes.
Thank you. Yeah, do a roll call.
Roll call, trustee Barajas,
Present.
trustee Blackwell,
Present.
trustee Nelson, trustee Ochoa,
Present.
trustee Price Ward,
Present.
trustee Rodriguez,
Who'd you say?
Rodriguez,
present.
trustee Benson,
Present.
trustee Washington,
Present.
Riley,
I don't see her thing up there.
concludes roll call.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that takes us to item 8, vote agenda. 8A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting January 18th, 2024. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of the regular board minutes for January 18th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by trustee Washington, seconded by trustee Price Ward. Call the question.
Trustee Barajas,
Yes.
trustee Blackwell,
Yes.
trustee Nelson, trustee Ochoa,
Yes.
trustee Price Ward,
Yes.
trustee Riley, trustee Rodriguez,
No,
trustee Benson,
Yes.
trustee Washington,
Yes.
six ayes.
One nay.
get touch sheets.
You have one nay or one no?
Thank you.
It was one no, right?
One.
Okay. That takes us to B, approve of January 18th, 2024 executive session minutes. I'd like to entertain, I'll put the motion out there before Becky speaks on. Entertain a motion for approval of the 24 January 18th executive session minutes.
So move. Second.
Oh, she sure did. Motion is made by trustee Washington, seconded by trustee Ochoa. And forget Becky spoke to him already, so call the question.
Trustee Barajas,
Yes.
trustee Blackwell,
Yes.
trustee Nelson, trustee Ochoa,
Yes.
trustee Price Ward,
Yes.
trustee Riley, trustee Rodriguez,
No,
trustee Benson,
Yes.
and trustee Washington.
Yes.
That's 6 ayes and 1 nay.
Thank you. C, approval of hearing officer's recommendation, recommended findings regarding disability applicant. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of the hearing officer's recommended findings regarding disability applicant. Motion. Yeah, he's gonna speak to it. I just want to get the motion on the floor. That was Tammy. I think motion was made by trustee Vincent. I don't catch the second. Was it
I think it was Victor.
Victor? Okay.
Was it?
He said he'll take it.
Yes. All of them.
Morning or afternoon.
Yes, a late morning, right?
I'm sorry, real, the executive director,
Okay, yeah, okay.
do we have
Could
executive
we,
director?
excuse me, Maria, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead with your presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Trustees, Executive Director.
Yeah.
I am here today to present item 8C on the agenda, which is the adoption of our hearing officers' recommended findings in a disability application appeal. Specifically, this is for Diane Fiedler. Just some brief background on this. Ms. Fiedler submitted a disability application, a disability pension application in 2023. It was denied by CTPF staff because the initial determination was that she was entitled to a service pension, not a disability pension. She appealed that decision. An administrative hearing occurred then in September, and we now have the recommended findings, which from Judge Hardigan affirms the CTPF staff decision, which denied the application.
Yeah,
So if there's any questions, that's just a brief background.
yeah, I'm going to ask, because I don't recall, trustee Nelson, who's the chairperson. We're on page 19, Lois. For the, have you gone through that, the disability, the hearing, that we had a woman that's being denied her disability pension?
You did already.
Yeah, briefly, I'll just touch on it. So essentially, oh, no, you're good. No apology needed.
I apologize, wrong chairperson.
That's good, but I was there, I couldn't speak, but we didn't have.
We were, that's right, we came
Yeah,
in
so-
and we.
Yes, okay, but to briefly discuss, in the Illinois Pension Code, once you reach a certain age threshold and service years threshold, which was the case here, you're entitled to a full service pension. If this member, Ms. Fiedler, was younger or had different levels of service, it's a different situation. But essentially, once you get above 6 years of age, 20 years of service, there's no more analysis needed.
There's,
Thank you.
after age 60,
Point.
you're not qualified for disability pension or?
Yes, it's just a full service pension. In the code specifically, it says service pension shall be paid. And that was our initial staff determination, and that is what Judge Hardigan has found as well.
Did you get clarity, Lois? You fine? You okay? I said, did you get clarity? You okay?
Yes, because I had read through, et cetera. But since I had missed the first part and there was a question coming up, I just wanted to, back up and be clear.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Will.
Okay, and what our attorneys also mentioned. I'm sorry, there's some folks who are
Michelle,
receiving a pension. Once they, obtain a certain age, then they have to go on, a regular disability or Medicare, whichever, works. And it, am I correct in that? According to our pension rules.
Sorry, can you rephrase that? I kind of.
Oh, okay. I was just rephrasing what you were saying.
Oh,
In
yes.
terms of this
yes.
denial also goes along with others who are already receiving a disability. And once they become a certain age, then they have to make a choice to come off of disability and actually go into regular Medicare or et cetera, because it doesn't continue. They have to make a choice to receive that pension, that Medicare pension, or they have no choice, actually. They cannot remain on disability beyond a certain age.
Yes, yes.
Uh-huh.
I was gonna say.
Okay, I have a question.
Go
Okay.
ahead, Jay.
So if you were granted a disability pension, once you get a certain age, then you automatically come off. So those 3 months before a person gets 65, if they get their Medicare and they do that 3 months before 65, is that
You're talking about something
two different things? Okay, so I just want to be clear on this.
What you talking about?
If you on disability and you get to be 60 years old,
Not 60. It's, the Medicare age. Uh-huh.
There's a clarification right there.
okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So you might be thinking of a duty disability.
Yeah,
That
yes.
that is, so there are two different types under the plan.
Okay.
Okay, but this is not a duty case.
Mhm.
You are correct that if you have a duty disability at 65, you transition to a service retirement pension.
See, that's what I,
Right.
But that's not this
Right.
situation.
thank you,
Mhm.
because I know
Quinn,
So can you explain to me what's the difference? Like you said, the duty disability, that's like, I'm 45 years old.
Right.
And it's an injury or sick.
Something that happens is part of your job.
Aha, okay,
Mhm.
thank you. That makes so much more sense.
Mhm.
I
So they're
love it.
all, so they're all types of, today
That
you're
makes
learning a
sense.
lot.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's different than, say, if I get sick and and have to go out disability, but that disability remains till I'm gone, night, right? Okay, thank you.
anyone have a question that hasn't asked a question? I said, did
That's
anyone?
not true, is it? Because when somebody turns 60 is when they returns to regular. Isn't it?
No, trustee Riley, if you are granted a disability pension, it
Mhm.
stays as a disability pension.
For the rest of your life?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't think it did.
It's the duty that changes, and that calculation
Oh,
is
yeah,
different
okay.
too.
Okay,
Mhm.
Tammy,
thank you.
So is,
I knew that.
I was gonna say, this is a non-duty application.
Okay.
And
Okay, I
she
think we
just did
kind of-
not want to, Ms. Fedler just didn't want to do, I mean, what was the basis of the appeal if it's like pretty much straightforward legally?
Uh, I would say it's just a dispute of interpretation of the pension code.
Is there a difference in amount or anything? What would be the, I'm sorry, I just don't. understand.
I don't think that there is a difference, Jen. If it's a full service and then a non-duty,
No, not when you've reached retirement age. There's no difference in the amount of the benefit.
I'm done.
oh, you're done? Okay. Right.
There are questions that you guys have been talking about.
Right.
I don't want to get into her business.
I concur.
Yeah.
We should call the question. Call the question.
I guess I'm the chair, so I should be going along with this.
It's good.
The disability, no, that's myself. Am I correct in that?
That's you're the chair of claims and service credit.
Right, claims and service. Okay, so there you go. At any rate. So all of the statements that have come out so far with Jen's help, okay, and William's help, is that we have our general questions answered so that we know about the fact that there are different disabilities. And thank you. So do you need a
Call the
move?
question.
Do you need a
Trustee
move?
I call the
Barajas,
question.
trustee
Call the
Barajas,
question.
Okay, I am the chair, so did you want to say something?
I already called the question,
trustee
Lois.
Barajas
Lois, I called the
was
question a long
to
time ago.
approve the hearing officer's recommended findings regarding disability appellant.
I'm sorry, could you read it again? Because I was talking.
Approval of hearing officer's recommended findings regarding disability appellant.
Yes,
Trustee Barajas,
Yes.
trustee Blackwell,
yes.
trustee Nelson,
Yes.
trustee Ochoa,
Yes.
trustee Price Ford,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
Yes.
trustee Rodriguez, trustee Benson,
Yes.
trustee Washington,
Yes.
9 ayes,
Thank you, Will.
Thank you all.
That takes us to D, approval of renewal of hearing officer Hardigan contract. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of renewal of hearing officer Hardigan's contract. Is there a motion? Motion was made by trustee Vincent and seconded by trustee Price Ford. And you want to speak to it?
Should I speak before we take questions? Would you like me to
Yes.
speak to it? Yeah. And I think it was in January, the board approved the hiring of Chuck Hervis as a hearing officer. And at that time, one of the main reasons were we thought it would be a good idea to have two hearing officers sort of available. But at that time, we also were not sure whether Judge Hardigan would be continuing his contract, which expired on January 21st of this year. Subsequently, we've learned that he did want to continue. And so he provided a contract to us, and which both sides, which have executed subject to the approval of the board. And so we're asking the board to approve the retention of Judge Hardigan as hearing officer for a 2-year term.
Thank you. Maria?
Yes, and at that time, thank you, Mr. Ata. At that time, I specifically asked the question, why Judge Hardigan's name was not on the list? And he says contract is expiring. I said, does he know that has he been received an RFP, or has he been contacted to say, we're doing an RFP? And you said no, that the pension fund had the right to not have to invite him again for to participate from the RFP. Because I said, as a Curtis,
Maria, is this relevant to the,
yes, it is,
Motion.
because I'm wondering why somebody else have why it's coming back on the table when it could have been resolved then.
Well, first of all, I was not the one that presented that motion, so I didn't say any.
No, you
I
didn't
actually didn't say anything about it,
Correct.
but be that as it may, we didn't need to interview Judge Hardigan. We've had years of experience with him, with his qualifications, so there was no need to interview him and have him compete with the other applicants.
But he did not know there was an RFP.
Well, there wasn't actually an RFP. It was an informal competitive procurement. But I don't think he knew, but there was no reason really for him to know, because he wasn't in competition with any of them. As we said then, we wanted to add a hearing officer, but we didn't ask for approval for Judge Hardigan yet because his contract had not yet expired, and we didn't know at that time whether he was going to continue.
Because he wasn't notified, because I had asked, okay, we'll listen to the tape.
He knew that his contract was expiring.
I know for a fact he did not. Thank you.
thank you, Dan. Call the question.
Trustee Barajas,
I'd like to abstain at this time.
Yeah, Tammy and Jackie.
trustee Blackwell,
Yes.
trustee Nelson,
Yes.
trustee Ochoa,
Yes.
trustee Price Ward,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
Yes.
trustee Rodriguez,
Yes,
trustee Benson,
Yes.
trustee Washington,
Yes.
8 ayes, 1 abstention.
That takes us to E, approval of legislative liaison RFP. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of a legislative liaison RFP.
So move.
Second.
Motion was made by trustee Washington, seconded by trustee Barajas.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, the board action request in front of you is to approve posting an RFP for legislative liaison. The contract for our current provider, Claiborne and Wagner, will expire on June 30th, 2024. And so we're asking for the board's approval to move forward with a RFP. And the plan is to bring back finalists to the June 20th board meeting to take effect July 1st, 2024.
Maria?
yeah. I wasn't aware. So then they just finished off somebody else's contract, or it was only, I don't recall because I don't get copies.
It was a 2-year contract.
Was it 2 years? Okay, thank you.
No? Thank you, Carl. Call the question.
Trustee Barajas,
Yes.
trustee Blackwell,
Yes.
trustee Nelson,
Yes.
Trustee Ochoa,
Yes.
trustee Price Ward,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
Yes.
trustee Rodriguez,
Yes.
trustee Benson,
Yes.
trustee Washington,
Yes.
9 ayes.
Thank you. That takes us to F, approval to post RFP for financial document processing and distribution solutions. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval to post RFP in financial document processing and distribution solutions.
So moved.
Second.
The motion made by trustee Price Ward and seconded by trustee Washington. Elise?
Good afternoon, trustees.
Afternoon.
Last year in June of 2023, the same RFP was brought forth and we ended up renewing with the current vendor for a 1-year term. However, this year we would like to start the process a little bit earlier and to solicit a wider range of interests. And so we're putting this forward to you to approve this at this board meeting so that we can post another RFP.
So,
Go ahead, Maureen.
Elise, could you please send just more specifically in a sentence or two, define this position? This isn't DA, right? There's the,
So this
it
is,
is DA Solutions?
yes, D4 Solutions.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was a 1099 hour
Yes.
errors.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
last year, over 1,500 people, they didn't have the stock card to print out the checks when they
Yes,
knew
ma'am.
that they do it every month. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Elise.
Did they charge us?
Call the question.
Trustee Barajas,
Yes.
trustee Blackwell,
Yes.
trustee Nelson,
Yes.
trustee Ochoa,
Yes.
trustee Price Ward,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
Yes.
trustee Rodriguez,
Yes.
trustee Benson,
Yes.
trustee Washington,
Yes.
9 ayes.
Thank you. H, well, I'm sorry, no, that is G, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Approval of 2024 private equity and pacing plan and allocation. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of 2024 private equity pacing plan and allocation.
So moved.
Motion is made by trustee Price Ward, seconded by trustee Washington.
Thank you, President Blackwell. If you recall, this agenda item was on the February Investment Committee meeting, but we weren't able to present it, so we pushed it to this meeting. Callan provided the study and pacing plan for this year, so I'd like to turn it over to Callan to go over that briefly.
Okay, great. I'll just take a couple minutes here to talk about the private equity pacing. On our presentation starts on page 2. So this is an exercise we do every year. We do this for asset classes that invest in private investments because when you commit to a fund, there is an end date to that fund. So you have to consistently recommit money to the asset class. And what we're asking for today is to approve the plan. And then as individual investments come up that staff brings to you, then you will approve actual dollars to actual managers. So what we're looking at today is, here's what we're planning for 2024 for private equity. And that's what we're asking you to approve. I'll start on page 3, going through the modeling that we did. So the current private equity allocation, as of the end of the year, was 8.6%, which is above the ultimate long-term target of 5%. Part of why the allocation has increased is private equity performance has been really strong. Private equity managers haven't been returning capital as quickly because they're waiting for selling opportunities. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we continually invest each year because we want vintage year diversification. But we are going to be committing less money because we want that target to come down, that allocation to come down over time. So this year in 2024, at the bottom of this page, this projected private equity commitments, we are proposing $50 million to be allocated this year to managers. On page 4, we take our pacing and we go out 10 years and we project where we think based on, each year and annual commitments, where we think the portfolio will be. And there's a few initiatives that staff has started undertaking and undertook actually 7 years ago. It just takes a while for the portfolio to change through time. One is for MWDBE managers to represent a meaningful portion of the portfolio. So you can see that on this pie chart on the top left. So in 10 years, the expectation is that direct MWDBE managers will represent about 42% of the portfolio. Overall, there's been a move towards direct funds as opposed to fund of funds. So what that means is you would be removing a layer of fees where you can. And so that's that blue portion of the pie chart. So that allocation would be about 58%. And we would maintain that fund to fund allocation so that as a public fund, you're still able to access venture capital funds and certain investment firms that need to have a certain relationship. And so you would leverage those fund to fund relationships in order to access those funds, because that's one of the challenges with private equity. And you have negotiated, or your staff has negotiated, some very favorable terms with some of these fund to fund managers. So we still think that it has a role in the portfolio, but we do want to focus on direct managers going forward. And then the last page I'll cover is page 5, which outlines kind of what I've already mentioned, that 5 years ago, there was the move more towards direct partnerships. The MWDBE exposure continues to be developed. Staff does the sourcing of managers for you. So Callan does this pacing study, and then Fernando and his team determine managers and commitment amounts to those managers. So what their plan is for this year is to focus on some of the incumbent MWDBE managers, as well as a potential RFP to identify more going forward. And so overall, you can see at the bottom of this page, the plan is for about $40 million to go to MWDBE direct managers, and then up to another $10 million for that venture capital fund to fund reinvestment as well.
Okay, I just have a question about fund to fund. Is this a move to just phase out fund to fund, or keep fund to funds for emerging and managers and things like that?
So we're not going to completely phase out fund of funds. The one that we're talking about for this year is a venture capital fund. So those are the funds that are harder to access.
Yes.
So this would be a reinvestment with a current manager to just maintain that allocation.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there will always be some type of fund.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Paula.
So you're just talking about, because you have a projection here, but what we're talking about, the motion is for one more year, right?
Right.
And it's 50 million above what we already have invested.
Yes. So you currently have about $1 billion invested in private equity, but because those funds have an end life, they pay back. And so you have to continually invest. $50 million is less than what you have done in previous years because of the over allocation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
It allows us to stay in the market, so we don't miss out on let's say 2024 to 2025 is a really good year. We're not out of the market necessarily. We have a certain exposure to it. And again,
but we're in the market already.
We are, but
You're asking us to commit additional dollars.
right? Because the previous ones most of them may have been already committed to something, and may not be for this year. So that's why for this coming year, we're proposing 50.
And it's specific to venture capitalists.
For up to 10 million, and then the other 40 up to 40 million would be other MWBE managers that we already have, and potentially a new search for up to 1 or 2 new MWBE managers.
No more question? Thank you. Call the question.
Trustee Barajas,
No.
trustee Blackwell,
Yes.
trustee Nelson,
No,
trustee Ochoa,
Yes.
trustee Price Ward,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
Yes.
trustee Rodriguez,
No.
trustee Benson,
Yes.
trustee Washington,
Yes.
6 ayes, 3 nays.
Thank you. Thank you. That takes us to H, approval of KKR Ascendant Fund, follow-on investment. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of KKR Ascendant Fund follow-on investment.
so move.
Motion made by trustee Price Ward and seconded by trustee Washington.
So please recall that at the February Investment Committee meeting, we invited representatives from KKR to answer questions regarding their investment strategy and the funds that we're invested in specifically. We are invested in 2 funds, America's Fund 12 and 13, $25 million each. So we have a total of $50 million invested in KKR at the moment. 12 is starting to harvest, and as of most recent report, we have a almost 19.1 net IRR return from that fund. The chart on page 3 shows more the total return, if depending on when you entered the fund. If you entered at the very beginning, you'll have experienced a slightly higher return, but that's really all the difference. The new fund that we're proposing to re-up was identified in last year's pacing. This really is an extension of their flagship strategy, but what they've proposed to do is they are going to focus only on the middle market segment. What they have found is that in the larger funds that they've invested in 12 and 13, if you pull out the middle market companies, those are pro forma returning above 30%. So that's why they've decided, let's focus on middle market for the next fund. These, they believe, have more room for growth, and they're targeting industries like consumer, financial services. Julie will go a little bit more into what they've done in the past, but some of the things that, 3 areas that they said that they will avoid are upstream and midstream energy, brick and mortar retail, and real estate, because they have a separate real estate division. Target returns of plus 20%, and money on invested capital of 2.25 to 2.5 times return. And the other thing that they have said is that for this fund, and from their opinion, it will be the first fund of its kind. They aim to make every employee an owner in their business for every controlled company in the fund. So essentially what that means is when they buy a company right at the outset, the employees know that they'll get participation and a successful exit of the company. They won't know yet whether it's a two times their money or 3 times, but they'll know once they exit, they'll get something based on tenure and how much they actually exit out of. They also, the employees actually also know right away, you know, where they stand in terms of, you know, how much they own in the beginning, and can track that online. And one of the things that they've already talked about also is that making sure that, because when the company is sold, a check is written immediately. And so they make sure that they are financially literate about what to do with the money, whether it's park it in a separate 401k or to do however they want with it. But they want to make sure that, you know, they know what to do with the money responsibly. And again, according to their documents, what they aim with this fund is to invest in good businesses and strive to make them great through several avenues. But I want to give Julie a little bit of airtime just to kind of talk about what they have invested in the prior two funds that we've invested in, what industries, just to delve a little bit deeper into that. So Julie, if you recall, joined us in the beginning of 2023, and she's been quickly ramping up her experience with a fund. And so I'll give her a little bit of time to speak to what we own.
Okay, great. So to give an overview of the two funds that we are currently invested in, fund number 12, they have this on the left, covers is diversified across many industries, professional services, software services, consumer materials, entertainment, healthcare, and capital goods, and those variety of industries. As Fernando said, currently it's in the harvest stage. 43% of its companies have exited the portfolio. These exits are primarily concentrated in the consumer and entertainment industries. Fund 13 on the right maintains a similar diversification as Fund 12.
Can we get page, I think 6?
Yeah.
What page is that? It's page 6 of the confidential version.
Yeah.
I think this one's only the public version, so you might have it on the confidential version.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Fund 13, as I said, similar diversification to Fund 12, with a slightly stronger focus in software and the consumer sectors. It is currently in the J-curve stage of the investment cycle. And just to reiterate what Fernando just said, both of these funds have avoided investing in energy, brick and mortar storefronts, and real estate.
And then lastly, just the fund terms, I think only thing to note is that typically private equity charges 2% on the management fee side. This one, they're charging only 1.5%. And an update on the target fund size, they were aiming for $4 billion. Through the latest close, they were above $3 billion. So they're getting close to that, that target raise. No more than 25% outside of US and Canada. So it's strictly going to be mostly in the US and North America, I should say. That's really it. Those are the high hard ones. Again, just to reiterate, every employee will have ownership, lower management fee, 1.5% versus 2%, and then middle market focus, which has pro forma much greater than what they have targeted on paper.
Questions? Quentin didn't-
So, actually, go ahead. Go ahead, ask your question.
Okay. No, at any rate, my only problem with KKR is the fact that you're still dealing in hedge funds. And our board agreed not to pursue hedge funds anymore. So I guess there are two problems, because I have a problem too with private equity, because there's so much in the news, concerning private equity these days. But the fact that the company plans to give the employees, exit money, then that sounds better than what I've been reading. But it still has the hedge funds. So that's the problem.
Yeah, I believe they still do have a hedge fund business. We're not
But
investing.
I'm sorry, I did not have the mic on. Okay, so my problem is with the hedge fund end of it. And so I'm listening.
Gotcha. Yeah, I believe they do still have a hedge fund business. We're not invested in hedge funds anymore, but they do, yes, they do have I believe, a hedge fund business.
That was okay. It has been a gentleman.
So I do understand that KKR is trying to, is attempting to be a better player in the field. But, I remember when they were here last month and I questioned them, and their response was, the reports I was reading, they were being cherry-picked, the companies. But those companies that were cherry-picked had 175,000 employees. And KKR received an F rating. That's for 175,000 people in their labor rating. their ESG rating was low too. So I wish them much luck in their ability to move forward, but they haven't proven that they have done it yet. So they're asking us to bet on something that they haven't done in the past in hopes that they do it in the future. And I'm uncomfortable with that at this time.
Thank you. Quinn?
So this is more, we're investing more. This still falls under private equity.
Yes.
And this doesn't push us out of our bounds of where we're trying to remain.
This was part of last year's pacing. So we've deployed, so we identified 50 million last year. I think we have so far approved 20 out of that 50. This would be 30. This will take us to 30 out of the 50. And there's 2 more before the end of the year that we're targeting. But that was last year's pacing. We haven't fully committed.
And so last year's pacing was specifically for KKR, or was it for this asset class?
For the asset class, right. And we had identified several funds, and KKR was one of the funds that we had identified. And we said, just like Callan said, we would do the due diligence and bring it up to you individually for your approval. So it wasn't like a blanket approval. You still have to, approve the specific fund as we're doing today.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess just the strategy that they're using, even though it's under the roof, it's the same hedge fund. I don't think I'm going to lose sleep over it. I mean, we're trying to motivate them to do something. We don't know how much leverage we have, but this is something to try to get another strategy put in place, and maybe others will take heed, but it works. It looks like it's successful. I think it's, as fiduciaries, I think we got to look at this and say, this is going to work for us.
Okay, and so I'm trying to rationalize, because I'm gonna be honest, when I missed what I misheard what we were doing when we put this on the floor. And so now I'm rethinking the second, to be, if I can just be completely honest and transparent. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not 100% sure how I feel about this, not the strategy per se, but the company.
Yeah.
I have very mixed feelings about it, and we do have resources with them already. So it does make me wonder, should we give them more, or should we? I mean, so this is like a pilot program. Where are they going to put this? Where are they going to put this money? Because we're giving them this money, and then essentially we're saying, good luck, go be great, and bring us back a good return. But do we have any influence in where they're going to put that money, where they are not going to put that money? And to the point that Paula raised, on paper is supposed to be going to, employees and stuff like that. But what is that really going to look like? Because we know their reputation as far as what they do with employees, just being, candidly honest about it, which is part of what gives me great pause as well. So I'm a little torn on that, just to be completely honest. It sounds nice, but the big bad wolf, blew the house down and went after the little peoples and stuff. I don't know. In sheep's clothing, I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest.
I'm sorry. Paula?
So I understand what Trustee Ochoa is saying, but we have a company that is in litigation and lawsuits, has companies that have gone bankrupt under them. And I think it's our fiduciary responsibility to also think about those issues, right? That they have companies, many of their portfolio companies that have gone through bankruptcy, that they're in litigation with other companies. Paired that with the fact that they're also entering the healthcare industry, which frightens me, to be quite honest with you. And so I think as fiduciary, I'd be like, it's my responsibility to think, how is it gonna hurt our fund as well?
Yeah. Okay, then you can come right after me. I'll be very brief. I do believe that based on what we've seen with private equity and specifically KKR, I just got a bunch of paper in my bag that I was reading about. And I do see that they are trying to go in that growth direction. They are trying to go in the growth direction, but I think they need to unravel themselves they have to repair their reputation and build the level, because it's not, we are fiduciaries, yes, but we have to make sure we in business with the right people, that it has to be humane. It has to be not damaging to people who have no alternatives. And we are a public fund, and we are the real people that have to draw this pension. So in my opinion, I really think I need to see them go a little further in that growth strategy, and then prove that this is what you're doing, because there was a lot of behind the curtain, underhanded, and I took it upon myself to just go and read some things and request paperwork, but I saw with my own eyes what they did with Nabisco, and we actually joined that picket line because all of those people were out, and that's not even a half a mile from me. And all of those people, to see those people turned out with no severance pay, nothing. Just get out, we sold the company, and they're gonna bring their own people in. So that right there, I just need to see more to wrap that up.
Thank you. Wait, then we'll call.
Yeah, so to that point, I'm rescinding that second on that motion.
I don't think you can do
Oh,
that.
I can't do that?
You can vote,
Okay.
vote no. You can
All
vote
right.
no.
So, okay. I mean, because I didn't want, okay, it's fine, because you second something and you
thought about it.
right. But okay.
Call the question. Thank you.
Trustee Barajas?
No.
Trustee Blackwell?
No.
Wilson?
No.
Trustee Ochoa?
Yes.
Trustee Price Ward?
No.
Trustee Riley?
She's there.
Trustee Riley?
She's muted.
Okay, she's muted though.
Trustee Rodriguez?
No.
Trustee Benson?
No.
Trustee Washington?
No.
Trustee Riley?
She might have fell asleep because she
Yeah, she was in bed.
yeah, she was in bed, so she might have.
2 ayes and 6 nays.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I'm an aye.
Three ayes.
3 ayes and I didn't move one.
It was Victor.
Two ayes,
Yeah,
Victor.
Victor was an aye and Riley was an aye.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think.
Should be 7.
No, right, no, there's only 2 ayes. You were right.
I didn't move a person, so it's, for ayes, I have Mr. Ochoa and Ms. Riley. For nays, I have Ms. Barajas, Mr. Blackwell, Ms. Nelson, Ms. Price Ward, Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Washington, and Ms. Benson.
Okay. Seven. Yep. Thank you.
7.
Thank you. That takes us to approval on investment committee recommendations of Heitman Fund 6, a follow-on investment. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of investment committee recommendation of Heitman Fund 6, follow-on investment.
So moved.
Motion made by trustee Price Ward and seconded by trustee Benson.
Just real quick, this was the item that Callan covered at the investment committee meeting. It's 30 million to a Heitman Fund 6. It's a follow-on. We were invested in funds 4 and 5. Fund 4 has reported a 15%, almost 16% net IRR for us. And Fund 5 remains in the investment period, but is positive from a net IRR standpoint. So this is the third investment for us with Heitman, Chicago-based firm.
Call the question.
Trustee Barajas?
Yes.
Trustee Blackwell?
Yes.
Trustee Nelson?
Yes.
Trustee Ochoa?
Yes.
Trustee Price Ward?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez?
No.
Trustee Vincent?
Yes.
Trustee Washington?
Yes.
8 ayes, 1 nay.
Thank you. Thank you, Fernanda.
Thank you.
J, approval of election services vendor. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of election services vendor.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Price Ward, second by trustee Washington. How do I do that? Dan, I need to change that motion to subject to, I just lost my train of
Subject to negotiation of
Oh, thank you.
contract.
That's what I was gonna say. Morning, all right, afternoon, Gail.
Good afternoon. So staff is requesting approval to award a contract for management of annual trustee elections. Sorry. Okay. So this board action request is a result of the competitive solicitation and evaluation process, which included written proposal and oral presentation reviewed by our evaluation committee. The evaluation committee recommends that CTPF engage with Election Services Corporation for trustee election management services. We're recommending the contract term shall be for 1 year with a 1-year extension option for a contract term no longer than 5 years. And this is subject to contract negotiations and legal review.
Thank you. Maria, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Is it for competitive services? Or was it because the last election service we used for the retirees, they only did electronic, well, no, they did electronic and paper ballot. But we had election services before.
We did.
We did, and then we switched over.
Yes.
But this new firm, well, the firm from recently from 2023, my understanding is they did not do mail ballots for active teachers. They only did electronic voting. They were only, is that accurate or not?
No, that's the option that we had on the table for them for last year.
So the
2023, we had the option of the ballots going, the voting credentials for teachers going directly to the homes. For pensioners, of course, pensioners, we have to do both.
So the current firm that we have right now, because it's about to expire, or maybe it did expire, then they could have done the same thing, electronic for the active teachers for the coming up election, electronic and paper ballots?
Well, when you say paper ballots, the voting credentials, so it wouldn't be an actual ballot, it's a voting credential. The teachers still are required to vote online, electronically.
Aligned, that's what I'm saying, electronically, but would they have the opportunity to be able to vote by mail?
Not the teachers, that
That's
was
what I
not,
thought.
that the vendor could not do it. It is that is our requirement, that it's only via online, the teachers. So although the voting credentials go to the homes, they are still are required. They can't, there's no ballot.
So
We
the
do not
current
send
firm
out.
could send that ballot or send the credentials to the house as well?
Yes, yes, credentials to the home, yes.
Can you give us a percentage what the difference was as far as the vendor cost?
Of this vendor versus.
Current, the new one that you're referring, that you're recommending?
Yes, okay, let me get some costs out too. So the current proposal is about from last year. So we're comparing.
Yeah, last year to this, last
So
year
I
to
would
what
say it's-
election services is offering now.
So percentage wise, it's about a 25%. It's lower than the last vendor, but we're not comparing in numbers with the last vendor. It's not the same election. So this year we're
Same.
having a principal and teacher election.
Got it.
Last
Okay.
year, there was a teacher and pensioner election. So the cost will be different.
Right, but the base pay, but the base cost.
It would be, this election vendor. would be
Election services,
less.
you could say election services.
Yes, the proposal would be less if
Okay,
if we
thank
break
you.
down the cost.
Thank you, Gail.
Just so an RFP was done, did we get the results of the RFP and I missed it or what, why were they selected over the other 10 people?
Our Election Services Corporation, yes, they were the ones who did bid on our proposal.
So I apologize, my question were there 11 responses to the RFP?
Were there actually a total of 11?
11 vendors were collected, including current, former.
No,
Yeah.
there were not 11 responses.
Could I ask you
Thank
just
you,
one
Gail.
last question?
Excuse me, Maria.
If I may.
Excuse
Okay,
me.
okay.
Thank you, Gail.
So
Okay.
Call the question.
I did want,
Well, oh, she doesn't get to finish? Oh, I'm sorry.
You exceeded your questions and she asked her question, so we're gonna call the question.
She had something else to say.
Did you get,
I just.
I'm
wanted
sorry.
I just wanted to clarify that the numbers that are put out there, we want to compare apples to apples. So with the elections, last year's election was different than this year's election. So, there's going to be a variation with the vendors on cost, so.
okay. Sorry, Gail. Thank you.
President Michael, could I ask a question?
Can we call the question?
For you?
Trustee Barajas?
Okay. I thought we were allowed 2 questions.
You asked like 6.
1.
Trustee Blackwell?
Yes,
Trustee Barajas, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Trustee Blackwell?
yes.
Trustee Nelson?
Yes.
Trustee Ochoa?
Yes.
Trustee Price Ward?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez?
No.
Trustee Benson?
Yes.
Trustee Washington?
Yes.
Ayes, 1 nay.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're up again, still in the hot seat. So that is, K, excuse me, Maria. K, approval to changes to election policy. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval to changes to election policy.
Second.
Motion is made by trustee Washington and seconded by trustee Price Ward and Gail.
Yeah, so staff is recommending changes to the election policy, and we do have some of the, if we can pull up the red line version where you can see what the changes that we would like to make. And I just wanted to speak to some of those changes, but they are highlighted on page 8 in red, and that is to remove the option of having the voting credentials being sent to the schools, to the pension reps.
Yeah, that's something we gotta work on that pension. Yes.
We do, we
Oh,
do.
I'm sorry, were you done with the presentation?
Yeah, so we do note and recommending that we remove this requirement to have the ballot distribution or voting credential distribution in the schools. And some of the points are that there's an inherent security risk with sending PIIs to an individual to cover a group's voting credentials. Two vendors have also indicated that it is not considered a best practice to have pension reps managing other individuals' voting credentials. And one even said that there was an instance where one person voted on behalf of their entire group because they had that information. So, but we had two vendors who said one said they don't have any clients who have that kind of method. So we are recommending, and also for cost, it's a cost savings to not having those credentials being sent to the schools is so with this, we are asking to remove the requirement out of the policy so that we can continue to have the voting sent directly to the individual members' homes.
Okay. Tammy?
So, yeah, so I'm not opposed to this because I know we've been doing it, but are we tracking voter turnout? Because it seems like with the electronic version, there are fewer members voting. And if we notice that that is the trend, what can we do, I guess, to improve the outcome?
So let's see, I had voter participation here. So I can say that last year's election, we did have an increase from prior years. We were at 16.74%. And prior years to that, we were 12 and around 12.2, 14. So we do see it going back in the direction of moving upward. And we do continue to engage our pension reps through weekly email reminders about the election, the upcoming election, and their role and responsibility of getting the word out, distributing our materials that we send over, posters and things like that. We do have the annual election webinar so that the pension reps are engaged in it and they are able to address any questions, because we know that some members may come to them with questions about voting. So we just want them to be equipped with that. So we keep them engaged on a weekly basis. And they are also given a stipend for their participation in that process of attending a webinar and distributing the election materials that we send over for them. So we constantly work. Communications is awesome with getting weekly announcements out to our pension reps regarding our election throughout the election cycle. So.
Maria?
So, Ms. Davis, so this is the first time we're changing it, correct? Because of these incidents that occurred? Or did we change at one point where we did it the old way, then we switched to the just electronic, and then we're moving back? That you're so soft-spoken and I
Okay, I'm
appreciate
sorry.
that.
Let me pull it
No,
right
no,
up
but
to
that's
you.
okay.
Okay, so when we went under the pandemic, we had the voting options in the school, but when we had the pandemic, we had to move to an electronic process online for the nominations platform and sending that materials out to the schools. So each year, and we found that that was working for us, and we saw a greater efficiency in doing so, that we would come to the board each year to ask, can we have this method once again, instead of sending it out to the schools, because there's some unpredictability with the schools being closed. Also, you never know if a pension rep or a teacher may not be in the school to distribute the voting materials. So we recommend it, and the board has passed it each year, but now we're just asking that it just be removed from the policy so that we can go directly to sending it to the teachers' homes, as opposed to the other option of having it every year. We have to come to the board to ask if we can have it sent directly to the teachers' homes.
Thank you for that historical presentation. Now I'm clear. Thank you very much. Nice job.
Any more questions? No. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
We need to vote on it yet.
Yes. Trustee Blackwell?
Yes.
Trustee Nelson?
Mr. Washington, you're corrupting.
Trustee Nelson? Trustee Nelson? Trustee Nelson?
Say yes. Trying to clarify something, I'm sorry. But we're voting in terms of the election.
Policy.
Yes. Okay.
Trustee Ochoa?
Yes.
Trustee Price Ward?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez?
Yes.
Trustee Benson?
Yes, yes.
Trustee Washington?
Yes.
9 ayes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then Approval of trustee, do we have some training hours to approve?
Yes, yes. If you pull up the training hours, I don't know if I have that, but yes. So we
I had a
are.
question about it.
Yeah, so this is starting over, right? Or when did this end?
I'm sorry.
These training hours end when? Because this is on a calendar year, right?
Yes. Yes, the training hours are on the calendar year.
Okay,
Yes.
so.
Ms. Davis?
Go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, just real, so you did such a great explanation. So clarify this because it's starting to look a little cloudy. So the training hours opposed to the hours when you go to conferences are two different things or they're the same?
The training, I'm sorry, could you
The
repeat?
training hour, trustee training hours in education, they're the same as the conferences? Or because sometimes we have training in the boardroom?
Yeah,
Are they
it's
separate?
inclusive of all training.
The.
So even the board training
It's a
and the,
culmination of both?
yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
So yes, we are asking approval of the training hours as presented.
Always, okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of the training hours as presented.
So move.
Second.
A motion is made by trustee Washington, seconded by trustee Barajas. And call the question.
Trustee Barajas?
Yes.
Trustee Blackwell?
Yes.
Trustee Nelson?
No, because I have no hour for 2024.
Trustee Ochoa?
Yes.
Trustee Price Ward?
Yes.
Trustee Riley? Trustee Rodriguez?
Yes.
Trustee Benson?
Yes.
Trustee
I
Washington?
mean, yes, I was muted.
Yes. As well.
Thank you. 8 ayes and 1 nay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Gail. Takes us to 9, report of the president. 9A, declaration of trustee vacancy. The first order of business in this report is the declaration of trustee vacancy on February 5th, 2024. Principal Administrator Jerry Travalos submitted his resignation. Effective immediately, Dr. Travalos served as Principal Administrator Trustee since joining the Board of Trustees in July 2012 and was most recently reelected in 2022 to a 3-year term through November 2025. We are grateful for his dedicated service, thoughtful leadership, and guidance throughout his distinguished tenure. We will miss him greatly and wish him the best as he navigates the demands of his new position. Trustee Travalos' resignation sets in motion a process that will be guided by the vacancy policy in our bylaws. Following the official vacancy declaration, I will appoint a committee of 3 trustees who will make a recommendation for an individual to fill the position at the May Board of Trustees meeting. The appointee will hold the position until the fall of 2024 for the next election, when CTPF will hold an election for an individual to fill the rest of the term through November of 2025. The election will be added to the teacher trustee election cycle. As trustee Travalos' status has changed, he no longer represents the principal administrators. I will entertain a motion to declare a vacancy in the principal administrator trustee position.
So moved.
Motion is made by trustee Riley, seconded by trustee Vincent. And call the question. Go ahead, Marie.
Yeah, I have a question because it says he resigned on February 5th. He went into that position of chief of schools as of September 2023. So does that mean he
I'm
lost?
not sure if let me ask legal if we can even discuss any of that.
Well, I guess my question is that he didn't resign until February, and I believe he attended some meetings. Does that mean each time his vote, when he moved up to new position and he was not representing principals, were his votes valid?
He was still considered administrator.
Okay, because I went on the internet and I saw the dates. Actually, he hasn't been. a
Okay, I can't
principal
speak
since
for what you saw on the internet.
2022,
We'll
and
call
he
the
continued
question.
on the board. Okay,
Trustee
on
Barajas?
record.
The motion got kind of mixed up, so I was trying to make sure.
Trustee Blackwell?
Yes.
Trustee Nelson?
Yes.
Trustee Ochoa?
Yes.
Trustee Price Ward?
Yes.
Trustee Riley?
Yes.
Trustee Rodriguez?
Yes.
Trustee Vincent?
Yes.
Trustee Washington?
Yes.
It's a mess.
9 ayes.
Nine B, appointment of trustee vacancy committee. Now that we have declared a vacancy in the principal administrative trustee position, I will appoint a committee of 3 members to manage the vacancy process. I would like to appoint trustees Vincent, Barajas, and Price Ward. I would like trustee Vincent to chair the committee. Trustees, do you accept the nominations?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Letters of interest for individuals who wish to be appointed to the position will be due to the fund on April 19th, 2024, and information for submission will be posted on our website. Please note that all letters and materials submitted will become public as they are posted in the meeting materials. We have tentatively selected the vacancy committee to meet on Friday, May 3rd, 2024, following the Health Insurance Committee meeting to review applications for the position. The committee will make a recommendation to the full board for consideration at its May 16th, 2024 meeting. The next order of business will be appointment to fill the vacancy on the Claims and Service Committee created by Dr. Travelos' resignation. According to fund bylaws, the chair of the committee is elected by the board and the members are appointed by the president. I would like to appoint trustee Barajas to fill this position. Trustee Barajas, do you accept to serve in this position? Oh, Claims and Service Committee.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the March 3rd starts at 3:30.
At 3:30, I believe so. Okay, where does that take us? Approval, do we have any conferences for approval? Or did we do that already? I don't think we didn't have any conferences. I don't believe that we did, yeah. You're looking at,
Yeah, we got to that.
no. Okay, that takes us to 10 items to move to the omnibus.
Are we, sorry,
Give me a minute.
we voting for the committee approval?
No. We didn't,
You appointed people on the committee, so.
and they accepted.
So, yes, so don't we vote on that?
No.
No? Okay, all right. I was ready to vote yes, okay. Thank you.
Ah, Lord. I'm sorry.
10A, report on the Committee of Claims and Service Credits. We can move that to the omnibus. Thank you. 10B, report on the Committee of Investments.
Yes.
10C, report on Committee on Finance.
Move to the omnibus.
Thank you, Mary. And 10D, report on the Financial Secretary.
Move to the omnibus.
Thank you. So we need to entertain a motion to accept the omnibus? Yes. I always want to say approve. Accept.
So moved.
Motion made by trustee Riley, seconded by trustee Price Ford.
Barajas?
Yes.
Trustee Blackwell?
Yes.
Trustee Nelson,
Yes.
Ochoa,
Yes.
trustee Price Ward. Trustee Price Ward,
I'm sorry. Yes.
trustee Riley,
Yes.
trustee Rodriguez,
No.
trustee Benson,
Yes.
trustee Washington,
Yes.
ayes, one abstention.
Thank you. That takes us to 11, report on the Committee on Pension Laws and Administrative Rules.
Take it.
He's not here.
He's not here.
Yep.
No. So he's going to speak to it.
So thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We didn't have any.
James Claiborne could not be here today to present the lobbyist report, and he did send an email providing a brief update. As you all know, we do have legislation that has been assigned bill numbers in Springfield, including Senate Bill 3346, which is the reemployment and reduction in penalty for teachers exceeding the limit. All of these items do have sponsors, and they are right now waiting to be assigned to committees. The latest update from James Claiborne is that the last item on our agenda, which relates to Section 1160 of the Pension Code, which provides clarification for how survivors' benefits are calculated under Tier 2, has been amended, has been at least added to Senate Bill 3252 as an amendment. So that takes care of all of our pending legislation in terms of it being assigned bill numbers. So at this point, we don't have a status in terms of those bills being moved, but we are waiting to see if they're going to be assigned to committees or to assignment. And that was the end of his update.
Those questions.
Yes, I was reading, I'm sorry. I was reading something in his report regarding the amendment to the article, specifically about the drivers, educational drivers, teaching the educational courses for driving. There were 900 hours in any school year. The service retirement pension benefits shall be withheld on a pro rata basis for each period of 7.5 hours in excess of 900 hours. Provides that the changes made by the amendatory act are retroactive to July 1st, 2020. Now, this is a big concern as to how that retroactive process is going to work between the Board of Education and the pension fund. So, you know, he needs to really give us some input on
Yes.
this.
I can speak to that, trustee
Okay.
Nelson.
Mhm.
So essentially, what this bill was going to do is reduce the penalty for our members. And as you know, it was a harsh penalty. For any day that they exceeded, they would lose the
But I'm
full.
concerned,
I'm gonna
especially with the
speak to it.
Okay.
I'm gonna speak to it. So the penalty reduction would essentially go from losing a whole month of benefits to just a day that you went over, right? We're on the same page there. So essentially what we decided as a group, as a board, was to, since all of our hardworking teachers, especially during the pandemic, were trying to come in to fill those classrooms, that it made sense that if we're going to provide this relief, that we go back to the 2020, 2021 school year, right in the middle of the pandemic. And essentially what would happen if this gets passed and signed by the governor is that we would go back, and for those members who had to pay their hard-earned dollars out of their pocket to repay the pension fund, we would issue refunds to them back to that date.
So we won't have to include CPS at any point?
No.
Okay, I just needed to, okay, clarification there. Thank you.
Welcome. No more questions. Thank you, Carlton. Okay, it takes us to 12, report on committee and investments. Jackie?
Hold on one second.
Good afternoon, trustees. As always, I'd like to thank you for having us before we begin our deliberations today. We have a lot to cover. Before I jump into the numbers, I need to take you back to 2022 to put the performance of the fund in perspective, okay? If I only had 30 seconds to describe to you how the fund is doing, I would say the fund is doing just fine. It's performing in line with expectations. There are some minor exceptions in terms of manager performance that we can explain. But most of it was driven essentially by the public versus private investments dynamics in 2023. But let's go back to 2022 and you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. If I take you back to 2022, you'll remember that year was tough. The S&P 500 was down about 18%. The Russell 1000 was down about 19%. Your private equity portfolio was up 0.5%. Interesting, right? How does that happen? Well, on the public side, those investments are marked to market every day, every second of every day. The private market investments are valued less frequently on a quarterly basis, every 6 months, et cetera. And therefore, from a valuation perspective, that different pace in valuation helps preserve the fund's value from an asset value perspective relative to the major losses we saw on the public side, right? So S&P 500 is down 18% in 2022. Private equity is up 0.5%. Well, let's fast forward to 2023 now. What happened in 2023? The stock market ends up over 20%, right? Your private equity portfolio is up only about 7%. Same dynamics, just the opposite relationship, right? So now you understand. So when you look at the total fund portfolio and its performance compared to the benchmark, the private equity benchmark is the Russell 3000 plus 3%. So if the Russell 3000 gives you a return in excess of 20% and you add 3% to that, guess what? Your private equity portfolio will never keep up with that. That explains 90% of the performance in 2023. The fund is doing just fine. So now let's jump into the numbers. Let's go to page 4 of the executive summary, please. And I'm going to focus on the columns on the right side of the exhibit that highlight performance for various market segments for the entire year 2023. The first thing that comes to mind, I'm sure, is that very tall red column. That's the Russell 1000 Growth Index. Growth outperformed essentially everything else. If you look at the green column, that's the S&P 500 index with a return of 26%, 26.3. And then, as I mentioned, the Russell 1000 Growth with a return of almost 43%. Don't get used to that number. It's not sustainable, right? Now, to give you a conservative measure, about 60% or more of the return of the Russell 1000 Growth or the return of the S&P 500 for that matter was driven by 7 technology stocks, known as the Magnificent Seven. That sector, those stocks represented a chunk of the S&P 500 index in 2023, north of 25%. We have not seen this level of market concentration since 1987. Now, the numbers look pretty on paper, but what I see is risk. Going forward, this may not be sustainable. Now, why are these stocks performing the way they are? I think it's being driven by 3 issues. Number one, the prospects of lower interest rates going forward if inflation is contained and the economy continues to do well as it has done so far. Number two, the implications of artificial intelligence and how that is going to impact essentially every sector in the economy. Some people say that this is more significant than the invention of the computer itself. So we'll see how artificial intelligence impacts not only all of these sectors, but our lives going forward. And then number three, I think is just the reversion of the mean, right? Technology stocks were punished in 2022 very severely. And of course, they rebounded in 2023. So that helps you understand kind of the significant gyrations you've seen in returns and how exaggerated these returns look, but it's being driven by just these few stocks. And the fact that this fund is diversified away from that concentration is a good thing. So S&P 500, 26%. And you can see that most of the other segments of the markets here were positive, with the exception of real estate, which of course is facing some challenges in the marketplace, especially within the office sector. Now for fun, I listed here the returns of various market segments through March 20th, just to see what the markets are doing so far this year. So the S&P 500 is up about 10% so far on a year-to-date basis in 2024. Small cap stocks about 3%. International stocks up about 3.5%. And bonds are down about 1.4% as yields have gone up. And there's an inverse relationship between yields and bond valuations. GDP growth was registered at 3.2% in the fourth quarter, about 2.5% for the year. Inflation continues to trend downwards. Remember, back in 2022, the summer of 2022, inflation went up to a little bit north of 9%. The year-over-year change has drifted downwards to about 3% now. And the PCE number, which is what the Fed pays attention to, was up just 2.4% year-over-year in January. So the picture looks encouraging from an inflation perspective, also from an economic growth perspective, and from an employment perspective. And the markets have been reacting to all of this, which is why you've seen such an uptick in markets, particularly in the fourth quarter of last year. Okay. Now let's get into the fund. Let's go to page 7 of the executive summary. At the bottom of the page, you'll see a table listing the value of each of the asset classes in the fund and the total value at the end of that table. So the fund was valued at $12 billion at the end of December, representing a gain of about $850 million just in the fourth quarter. This is the highest valuation I think I've seen in my experience working with you, which is very, very encouraging. Given the fact that, we've had some challenging markets out there, and the fund now is valued at $12 billion, which I think is great. The asset allocation is close to the targets. Here you see the kind of the legacy, the old targets, and I understand that there is a plan in place to transition from the current to the new target in the next few months. So we'll continue to work with staff on that and report back to the board as we make progress on that front. Any questions so far on the markets, the economy, asset allocation? Please.
So I'm hearing, Angel, that perhaps the Fed's reduction in the interest rate is baked in. Some people are saying it's not baked in. What's your take?
So we expect, at least based on the comments that were registered just 2 days ago or yesterday after the meeting, that they expect at least 3 rate cuts this year. Based on where we are so far with inflation and some of the other metrics they pay attention to. So this is very much a data-driven process and decision point. So if things change materially, they may take a step back or continue to march forward in this direction. So the expectation is that rates will go down at some point during 2024. Okay, I'll take you now to page 11 to talk about performance of the fund. And now you understand, right, exactly what happened and why performance is the way it is. So the fourth quarter shows a return of 7.7% for the fund relative to 8.6% of the policy benchmark. That private equity impact explains much of that. Over the year, you ended with 12.9% versus 13.9% of the index. And then as you look at longer term periods, you'll see that the fund continues to do very well, not only relative to the policy benchmark, but in particular relative to your peers. So over the last 5 years, you rank in the top 23% of other public pension funds. And over the last 10 years, you rank in the 42nd percentile. So great performance from that perspective and great results relative to the policy benchmark over the long term, which is what we're concerned about. Now, to look at performance on a net of fees basis, we should flip to page 13. And you'll see two bar graphs here. If you focus on the second half of the page, you'll see net of fees performance across various time periods. And again, as you look at extended time periods, you'll see that the fund has performed very well relative to the policy benchmark on a net of investment management fees basis. I'm going to conclude my prepared remarks there, but happy to take any questions or comments from the board. Oh, I have one other item to cover with you, and that is the watch list, of course. So why don't we go to that on page 22. And just to summarize what's going on here, so there are a number of managers on watch who have been on watch for a while for a variety of reasons, performance, organizational changes, et cetera. You'll note that SGA is listed here. SGA was placed on the watch list due to performance concerns relative to the metrics that we use to make these decisions. Well, SGA's performance has improved to a point where now those metrics look favorable. So there is no need to maintain SGA on the watch list at this point on the basis of those performance metrics. They've done much better, and we are encouraged about their recent performance, and therefore our recommendation to the board is to remove SGA at this time from the watch list.
Second.
Trustee Barajas,
Yes.
trustee Blackwell.
He'll be back.
Oh, trustee Nelson,
Yes.
trustee Ochoa,
Yes.
trustee Price Ward,
Yes.
trustee Riley, trustee Rodriguez, trustee Benson,
Yes.
trustee Washington,
Yes.
trustee Riley,
When you stop talking, then she'll come back in, I guess.
7 ayes.
If she is, she took off.
Yes.
I
I
told
couldn't
you,
get it off mute.
told you when you stop talking, she'll come back.
8 ayes.
Okay. You know, I did have a question.
Yes, please.
Angel, about AI. What is I know this is gonna be big. What about G4? You know, that's supposed to be bigger than AI. We were learning about that at the NCTR conference. So is there any new information on that?
You know, I know nothing about G4.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
My
But
bad.
AI, I think
Okay.
will be revolutionary.
Okay.
I think that the implications are such that we don't even understand the opportunities that AI brings to the table,
Mhm.
really across industries, from healthcare to information technology to everything else. I mean, it's to a point where you can now talk to a machine and have a conversation about things. You can ask this machine questions, and this machine will answer those questions in such a way that you feel you're talking to a human being with factual information, with a level of understanding that is actually quite scary and exciting at
Yeah.
the same time. So.
Yes, so, yeah, that is scary, but, so.
I'll read up on G4 so I
All
can
right.
get up to speed on that.
They were really, that was really kind of scary, what they were talking about and what they do and what they're already doing in China. You know, with the robotic dogs.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well, I'll
and
tell you-
these are the new pets.
I'll tell you a story and you'll appreciate this as teachers, okay? My wife is a teacher too.
Mhm.
So my youngest son comes to me the other day and shows me this beautifully written essay, right?
Mhm.
Dad, look what I wrote, blah, 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 look, blah. And I read this thing and I'm like, well, Adrian, this is great. How much of this was Chat GPT and how much of that was you? Well,
Yeah.
no, I wrote the first two. You need to write her on your own. I mean, on this thing, right? It
Mhm.
looked great, but I could tell because I know how my son writes.
Yes,
This is not you. Please,
Exactly.
get out of here. You're not gonna.
He had those great big words in that. Yeah, so that's gonna be a big deal.
Yeah,
And we'll see a lot of that because, and my fear is that, it's going to make students lazy.
right. It's already happening.
It's already, and I don't even know, I can't even imagine that. Because what we have to do to pull teeth to get them to write, they just want to talk into the phone and say it, and then they want you to just listen to it on the phone. Now, they're doing that right now, and they are losing the art of
Right.
writing.
And the ability to think
And to
critically.
think
Right.
and handwriting, and they don't think they have to remember anything, that I can go to it on my phone.
Right.
So that's what's scary to me, because I think that we're gonna have generations of people who have forgotten how to even form letters, to even, write just a handwritten letter
Yeah.
or something. It's really scary because, and I'm kind of glad now they won't allow the students to keep their phones on them
Right.
because they're videotaping and sending stuff out while they're in the bathroom and stuff. So,
It's the unintended consequences of all of this technology, right?
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think getting back to basics and making sure that we maintain that is very important. But take that example and try to apply it now to other, I'm sure the same issues are applicable in other industries too, right? Where
Yes, yes.
now I don't have to think, I can just ask this thing to give me the answer and I can go on from there. That may
Exactly.
not be the solution.
No, it's not. And then they don't even have to remember it because I could just keep asking.
Right.
And I'm not even incorporating or, combining information and building on things. So on knowledge.
Right.
So this is.
And on the other hand, when you look at the opportunities brought about artificial intelligence, think about this terrible pandemic we just went through, right? The sequence that was developed to come up with the vaccines.
Yes.
AI had a lot to do with that.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
So that, right, AI was partly, not entirely, but partly responsible for us to have the ability to meet here face to face.
Wow.
So that's just one example. So I think there's a lot of promise in it, but there are risks that we as a society need to think about.
There are going to be unintended results or unintended risk, unintended negatives, and
Yeah.
maybe positive. Maybe people will take off with it, but
Right.
good to know. Thank you
Yeah,
for
you bet. You're welcome.
for that information.
Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Yeah.
Takes us to 13, report on executive director.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, President Blackwell, members of the board. I will start with a review of our status for our fiscal year 24 contributions to date. The required contributions from our employer and the state of Illinois were $1,022,546,000. And we have collected to date $517.4 million, with another $505 million to collect before the end of the fiscal year.
All right.
We just heard an update from Callan on our investments, so I'll skip that update and just get to some activities that I want to update the board on. And we've talked about it during the week, but this is one that, you never get tired of talking about. And that is in February, CTPF earned again the Great Place to Work certification. And this year, we had impressive gains over last year. 88% of our employees said the CTPF is a great place to work, which is a 7% gain over last year's results and compares to 57% for your typical US-based company. So thank you to the board, to our senior leadership team and our staff for that great result. Quick announcement on health insurance rebates. The annual mailing of the rebate went out on February 29th, and they're due back on July 31st, 2024. The My CTPF portal was very close to 20,000 users for the first time. We're at 19,499 users. We didn't get an update, you may have noticed, at this meeting on Project Titus, but we will have an update at our May meeting on the project. But you should know that activities for the implementation are underway. Project sub-projects for the employer outreach and data assessment and migration projects are moving forward. We are a retirement system, so I want to give you an update on the retirement season. 2024, we began with 2 webinars. More than 600 members attended on February 19th. Dates and registration links for the March webinars have been posted on our calendars, and we're also sending reminder postcards to our members. We will have a town hall on May 9th, 2024 at 4 p.m., and registration is now available for that. As part of my update today, Part B is the health insurance expense and premium rebate update. And you will recall this last fall, we made some significant decisions as it relates to our health insurance. We had significant savings as it relates to our Medicare programs. We also made the decision to hold our rebate percentage at 60%. And so since we're a little bit over the mid-year point, we asked Siegel, Dan Levin and Siegel, as well as staff, to come in and provide a mid-year update on the health insurance expenses and the premium rebate. So I'm going to turn things over to Dan Levin and staff.
Good afternoon, trustees. So if you take a look at executive summary on the second page here, what we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail, but here are the main points. The expenses for the half fiscal year, the first half of fiscal 24, which is July 23 to December 23, they were higher than expected. And we'll talk about why. It was due to prescription drug experience with specialty drugs and diabetic medications. The same time for 2025, wanted you to be aware of changes coming in legislation because of the Inflation Reduction Act that are coming. Difficult to quantify the value of those changes right now, but we're going to attempt to give you at least a ballpark. But the bottom line is that between the two of those two things, it looks like that keeping the premium rebate level at 60% for fiscal 2024, which in fact a prudent course of action, given the unfavorable experience we saw and the coming legislative change is going to increase costs for the plan. So let's talk a little bit more detail about the first half expenses on page 3 here. So the incurred expenses that actually occurred for this 6-month period were $37.3 million. What was projected was $33.3 million. So $4 million higher than projected, or about 12%. Now, if you remember, all of your programs, except for the prescription drugs for certain Medicare folks, are fully insured. So when you see a shortfall like this, most of that's going to be coming from the prescription drug costs, because that's the variable component. And so, in fact, it was about $4 million, claims higher than expected. And when you look and dig down into it, it's the following categories driving most of that: inflammatory condition specialty drugs like Stelara, cancer specialty drugs like Revlimid, and diabetic drugs like Ozempic and Trulicity. Obviously, these are drugs people need. So, not necessarily a lot you can do about it. In fact, these drugs don't generally have generic equivalents at this point. So, they're just expensive. And so additional utilization of those drugs is what caused the unfavorable drug experience. So then we talk about 2025. Want to make sure everyone is aware of the law changes that are occurring that are going to impact the plan. The Inflation Reduction Act has created some unknowns, but we do know that there are some headwinds, some things that are going to increase the cost of the plan, even though it's difficult to quantify yet. The first is the $2,000 out-of-pocket limit that each individual that's in any Medicare Part D plan will have. That includes your plan. So the plan is going to be richer, than it is now because, people won't be paying copays after a certain point. At the same time, they have recalibrated these risk scores, which determine how much federal money you get, based on, they said, okay, we're going to keep the total pot amount of money the same, but we're going to change it so that low-income folks get higher reimbursements and a higher risk score to get higher reimbursements, and those who are not low income will get a lower amount. Well, when you're a pension system, the fortunate thing is you don't have a lot of low income folks because they're getting pensions. But in this case, that actually will hurt you because it means that some of the money that would have otherwise gone to your folks passed, not directly to your folks, but passed back through in the cost of the drug claims as a subsidy that would reduce their premiums. That is now going to go to the individual market where there are more low income folks. And they're also going to be reducing the amount of the catastrophic reinsurance payments you've been seeing. So the combined impact of those changes will increase plan costs for 2025 for the prescription drug plan through ESI. We're not yet certain what the net amount is, but ESI expects to have an update on that in May. We do have from other sources a broad ballpark. This is very broad ballpark of that it might look like a 20% increase in the cost of the plan for these changes. So again, that's very broad, and we're going to get, more information from Express Scripts in May based on your actual people's utilization, and based on additional guidance being released by the federal government. But, as a ballpark, we do know they're going to go up, and it could be in the neighborhood of 20%. Now, that's just on the drug portion of cost. But remember, for example, for people that have, the United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plan, we negotiated so they actually have $0 premiums for the next couple of years on the medical side. But so the drug portion is their entire cost. So, if you look at their cost as a whole, it would be going up by that same percentage. All right, so given what we just talked about, the increase in drug utilization in 2023 and the IRA changes, Inflation Reduction Act changes for 2025 and going forward, it does look like keeping the premium subsidy level at 60% for fiscal 24 was a prudent course of action at this time. The next steps would be, after we get information back from Express Scripts in May, we'll work with them and look at possible scenarios that we would be able to present hopefully in June. And then the committee and the board would be able to consider, if they wanted to make any changes to the plan design of the prescription drug benefit based on, this change in law or whatever the premium increase is, if they would rather just have the premium increase instead. So we'll give you some options, hopefully around June timeframe, as to, the best way that you choose to deal with whatever this plan increase is going to be in liability. So questions?
Yes. I was wondering about the update with this Plan G, since it is a new plan. You know, do you have any feedback or any update on what's happening with it? And if it was accepted, you know, by many of our members?
That's going to be, I think, for one of you.
So trustee Nelson, nice to see you.
Mhm.
We actually did not have as many enrollees as we had originally anticipated. I know that Siegel had originally thought that we would maybe have in the upwards of 400. I think we're at like 30 people
Oh.
enrolled, so it was pretty low enrollment, unfortunately.
Or 80.
So just to back up, so did any who were in Plan F change? Or these are all new people?
They were not allowed to.
Okay, so these are all new people?
These are only folks that are not eligible for Plan F or eligible to
Mhm.
enroll in.
Mhm.
We are starting to see a few here and there as they retire.
Mhm.
In recently, not at open enrollment. At open enrollment, I think we got about 24.
Oh,
And I think we're at 30 now, maybe 31.
thank you.
Sure thing.
Any more questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. 14, unfinished business. Maria,
I was gonna do new business.
would it fall under? Okay. New business. Oh, Paula's, yeah.
Hello, fellow trustees. I will be speaking at the Labor Notes Conference. I just want to let everyone know. I will not be representing CTPF. I'll be representing Chicago Teachers Union. And it is about the untapped power pensions. I was asked to speak. And it's it's to motivate other union members to become more involved in their pension funds, to run for trustee. I'm sorry, I was trying to read, make sure. What made me want to run for a trustee, just things of that nature. I'll be one of several panelists. I just wanted to make sure everyone.
What day and time, Paul?
Oh, it's my schedule, hold on.
It's at the Labor Notes.
Yeah.
It's at Labor Notes, which is in April, so it's like,
Yeah, I didn't
Still have
see.
seats available. They did.
it's the 20th, April 20th.
April 20th.
Yeah, the Labor Notes Conference.
At the place over on Ashland?
No, that's all the way out at Mount O'Hare.
Yeah, it'll be in Rosemont.
Then it's a fee, right?
I don't know, they're covering my fees, so.
Oh, well, it is, but I know, Jackson said they still had a few seats left. Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for me?
So, yeah, I do have one.
Yeah.
So is this gonna be about, basically what we went to New York for and how we can build power through the power of our dollars, through pensions and investments?
I think they'll hint on that, but for me, because I'm such a new trustee, I think they want to sort of tap onto like, why would I become a trustee? And
Okay.
sort of that newer end. I think there'll be other people that'll talk about those things. That's at
Yeah.
least how, what my position was on the panel would be.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Go ahead, Vic.
Really, it's not about Paula, but just, this is a good practice that she's following. So,
Yes.
so Michelle, just, this is what you think we should all do when something like this comes up, just to make sure.
Oh,
we're all
media
on the up and
policies.
up. So we should check with you.
I think it's very helpful for everybody, so appreciate it very much.
Again,
Some of us, Victor, belong to different organizations and we are on the agenda to speak several times because I'm with the retirees with CTU and a couple of the organizations. As long as we are talking about things that are in public knowledge, then there's no problem to be on any of our organizations' agendas. And I want to make that clear because I do speak often to different organizations, not something big like Labor Notes
or, something special one day or something like that. It's just an ongoing thing with different organizations.
I think of it as a way to protect your.
Victor, you're not aware of what I'm actually talking about, but I wanted to clear it because of what we're talking about between Michelle and myself. Thank you.
Victor, you're just talking about the procedure following what Paula, okay, you're talking about two different things. Okay. All right, Maria.
Yeah. This is an emotion, but this is something that needs to be addressed. Under new business, I'm requesting for independent counsel due to misman.
Let me ask council, can we even,
May I finish
let
my
me,
sentence?
let me ask council if we can.
Yes.
No, I just want to make sure.
Oh,
You may talk about any matter at a regular meeting, even if it's not on the agenda, we just can't take action on it.
I just want to make sure she could talk
And
about it
that's what I
because
said,
she's being
yeah.
recorded.
it's fine. Thank you.
No, I'm making sure you're
No,
covered.
no, no, that's fine. I'm good. Request for independent counsel due to mismanagement concerns of the fund and due to threats made against me.
Okay. Thank you.
So if this is something we want to place on the May agenda to discuss it, it needs to be addressed. It's serious. Not everybody knows what goes on behind closed doors. But when it came to a threat, I don't take threats. I will not accept threats. You can censure me all you want. I will not take a threat from anybody, whether it's an attorney, whether it's an employee, or whether it's a trustee.
I think you're
Thank you.
delving too far. Oh, all right. Thank you. No further new business? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Go ahead.
Because we didn't go over the conference thing, and Lois had pointed out that an April 11th event, which I thought was just a luncheon. Jackie, when you get the award, is that a conference? It is a
That
conference.
is the lunch, it's a lunch.
So it's not a conference.
It's not a-
conference.
Oh, yeah, it's on the conference list. I just want to know.
Okay, thanks, Tammy. Motion to adjourn was made by trustee Price Ward, seconded.
Yes.
Price Ward made it and Washington
Yes.
seconded. Call the question.
Trustee Barajas? Yes. Trustee Blackwell?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Trustee Ochoa?
Yes.
Trustee Price Ward?
Yes.
Trustee Riley? Trustee Rodriguez?
Yes.
Trustee Benson?
Yes.
Trustee Washington?
Yes.
Trustee Riley? That's 8 ayes.